Hi guys, so today's video is going to be my Wispy Wednesday video for the 1960s. Hopefully you can tell by like my general hippie vibe. Now this I know to a lot of people is like really cheesy hippie this thing going on, but really if you go back and you research it, this is really what they had going on. They really didn't wear a lot of makeup because they were too high to give a shit, and generally speaking the hippie movement was a lot of teenagers grouping together for whatever cause they wanted to like group together with. You know, they had a lot of fun. It was very like, let's do drugs and be happy and free and all that. And so I mean they didn't wear a lot of makeup, but one thing I did find interesting was sort of like the body painting, face painting aspect of it, which is why there's this. So yeah, if you guys want to know sort of how I did this, it's very simple as you can expect it to be, but if you guys want to learn just a little bit of why they did some of the things they did, then stay tuned and I do hope you guys enjoy it. Okay, so for the actual makeup part of this tutorial, it's fairly simple. I was reading and I thought it was really interesting. I read something that was about like sort of hippie culture and stuff like that, and it basically said, if you were high on LSD, would you feel like doing your makeup? And it kind of clicked with me because I was like, probably not. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of interesting. But anything that I did see, and this is kind of basing it off of just sort of the culture, they were outside in the sun a lot, festivals, and just being free and in the sun and all that stuff. So I'm kind of just making myself look slightly more sun-kissed than normal. So I'm using this palette. This is one that I had when I went to beauty school, so I'm not sure what this is. And I'm using this very sort of scary orange color. It has a lot of shimmer in it, and I'm using it on a fluffy brush like this. And I'm just barely tapping my brush in that, and I'm just gonna apply it like right through my cheekbones, kind of as like a blush slash like cheekbone highlight thing. And then if you don't like anything, you think it's too harsh, then just take sort of a buffing brush, just kind of buff it out a little bit so it's not as dramatic. Okay, so once that sort of bronziness color is on, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to highlight again to just kind of look like you've been sort of in the sun and it reflects nicely. I'm using vanilla pigment, of course. I use it all the time. And I'm just using a different brush for that. And then I'm applying that, too much, on the my cheekbones, right along through my eye socket as well. And just kind of like really on the high planes of the face, just to add that kind of glow, which I really like. And then for eye makeup, I didn't notice that they wore a lot of eye makeup in the 60s, especially, again, this is kind of focusing on the more hippie culture side, but I did notice that they wore like a little bit of eyeshadow. So I'm kind of going for like the more pastel pink. And again, just to keep everything simple, I'm using the same palette. Yes, there are blushes, but really, as long as they don't make your eyeball fall out, then I'm not really concerned. So I'm mixing like a shimmery pink and kind of a shimmery peach color, and it just creates like a slightly not really there kind of eyeshadow. Okay, so once I'm done with the eyeshadow, the next thing I'm going to do is eyelashes. And eyelashes were very much a focus, whether you were sort of in the hippie culture or more sort of like the mod kind of side of the 60s, lashes were still a focus. So I was reading a thing that said, you know, apply one coat of lashes, and then apply another coat of lashes for good measure, and then just apply a third one, just cause. So it was really like thick, kind of spidery, clumpy lashes. So that's what I'm gonna do. You really can use any mascara you want for this because you want one that's gonna clump. I'm just using 3 coats of my regular mascara, but really the clumpier, more spidery, then the best, because in a way it's kind of like they would apply mascara on top of like a day-old mascara. So it kind of just builds up and it gets to that level. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so once eyelashes are done, your eyes will look like this, just sort of clumpy. It's really beautiful actually to kind of keep your makeup simple and then just have eyelashes. I like it, and it's definitely something that has come back even in like recent sort of fashion trends. You notice sort of just like pale eyes, or pale like makeup, and then just these clumpy kind of spider lashes. So for lips, again, it was kept fairly simple, definitely coming out of the 40s and the 50s with like red lip. This was sort of the time where women were like, fuck this shit. Feminism, woo. And it's also the time where the majority of the population were teenagers, so that's kind of started the whole hippie movement, really. Well, not really started it, but it helped embrace it. So a lot of the time they didn't wear a lot of makeups, and they didn't either have a lot of makeup or they didn't care, or they were too high to give a shit. So I'm kind of mixing two sort of nude-ish colors. The first one that I'm using is called Semi-Annual. It just was a nude color that came out with a Graphic Garden collection from MAC. This was like ages ago. Just any sort of like kind of glossy nude, then throw that on. And then on top of that, I just like to add a little bit of shine just because this kind of kills it for me. I don't like nude lips on myself, but... And then I'm putting a little bit of this one. This is Garden Bed, and this is sort of a bronze color that has a little bit more like sparkle in it. I'm going to put that in the center so it kind of sparkles some stuff up. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for face, and it was really kind of simple. So really, you could use this as like an everyday look. You can use this as a really nice summer look. I recommend it. And another thing that I want to talk about is hair. Now, straight hair and long hair was in and all that stuff. You guys seen many pictures and stuff, I'm sure, of hippies with like long hair. Now, this is kind of an interesting thing, at least in my family. My aunts are a couple years older than my mom. My mom is the youngest girl in my family, so she kind of gets, like, she's more like the 80s, and my aunts are more like 60s and 70s, mostly 70s though, but they can still kind of relate to the 60s. And I remember my one aunt telling me that she used to put her hair down on an ironing board and put her hair between pieces of wax paper to straighten it with like an actual iron, because they didn't really have like good hair straighteners or stuff like that, so she'd like, that's what they used to do to their hair to get it like that pencil straight. So I thought it was really interesting because, you know, I don't know if a lot of people did that or if it was just like my aunt who did that, but I thought it was really kind of something cool to share. Okay, so then once you're done with hair, I just kind of messed mine around and did some stuff. It looks like this. It's kind of cute. I think it's kind of fun if you don't have one of those stupid headband things that I hate. Yeah, so moving on to something else that I found really interesting when I was researching the 60s, was sort of the population of face paint. Now, it wasn't really like, oh, face paint, woohoo. It was more of like body paint and more of just sort of like an artistic, like expression. And there's actually this video clip that I found on YouTube, and it was, and I forget what it's called, but it's like 60s flower child something something, and it shows clips from the 60s of these I guess teenagers at the time, just kind of like drawing on each other with like face paint and body paint, and it was just really cool to see. So I'm gonna kind of get inspired by that. And, you know, they drew peace signs and flowers and just signs of, like, love and happiness. Like, I know that sounds so hippie, like, woo, peace, love, but really that's kind of what they stood for, and it was what was expressed. And it's kind of awesome. I think it's really cool. So I am going to go ahead and just kind of draw, like, a daisy or some shit on my face. I'm using the Makeup Forever Flash palette, but, like, in anything that I've seen, they used to have, like, I tried to find it, because I know that they had these, like, they're like cream makeup sticks, kind of similar to like the crayon stuff that you use now to like draw things on kids' faces, face paint wise, but they had those, but it was in like what I thought was like a yellow container, and I could not find the brand for the life of me, and I tried and tried and tried to search for it, but it was really interesting because it was kind of like face painting crayons, which was cool. But for the sake of this, I'm using Makeup Forever Flash palette, and yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and draw some face paint stuff on because it's kind of cool. Okay, so then once you're done with your little sort of whatever you want to put on, that's kind of the finished sort of look. And I know it's really cheesy to put flowers and peace signs on, but really, if you go and you research it, then yeah, that is what they did. And it was kind of just fun and cutesy, and I don't know, it's one of those things where, you know, people ask, like, what kind of decade would you like to live in? And I think, like, being a flower child / hippie in the 60s, and even the late 60s, like, during Woodstock and all that, that had to be legit one of the coolest times. Like, it's one of those things that like has always fascinated me. Like, it's not really my style or anything, but it's something that just seemed like such a great time. Like, it seemed like it was always summer. Like, anytime you ever think of the 60s, you never think of like, oh yeah, they rocked it out in the snow. You always think of like summertime and like spring and like having fun at festivals, and I don't know, I just think it's fun and cool. Yeah, so this is kind of my sort of Wispy Wednesday for the 1960s. I do hope you guys enjoy this. My next video will focus more on like the mod side, which is again kind of like another side of the 60s, which I find really interesting as well. So yeah, I do hope you guys enjoy this, and if you use it for anything, let me know, and yeah, so until my next video, I'll talk to all you soon.